There is a man, you know him. You might see him in the mirror. He stands at a crossroads, not of dirt and gravel, but of data and opinion. In his hand a phone glows, a modern oracle offering 1,000 conflicting prophecies. One scroll tells him to be a warrior, to crush his competition, to be an unshakable titan of industry, an alpha. The next scroll whispers a different gospel, to be vulnerable, to deconstruct his privilege, to be soft, empathetic, and to listen more than he speaks. He is told his ambition is toxic, and in the same breath that his lack of ambition is a failure. He is told to lead, but to do so without authority. He is told to be strong, but never aggressive, to be a protector, but not a threat. He closes his eyes. The screen is off, but the voices remain, echoing in the vast, silent chamber of his own mind. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to be a good man. But the architects of the world have torn down all the old blueprints, and the new ones are drawn in invisible ink. This is not a fleeting moment of confusion. This is the quiet, ambient anxiety of modern masculinity. It is the unspoken crisis of our time. How to be a man when nobody knows what that means anymore. But what if this crisis, this suffocating paralysis, is not merely a social problem? What if it's something deeper, a spiritual malady, a collective failure of the most crucial journey a human being can undertake? The great psychologist Carl Jung gave it a name: individuation. The lifelong process of becoming a complete, whole, and authentic self. The crisis isn't that the world is confusing. The crisis is that men have stopped embarking on the one journey that could give them a compass to navigate it. For centuries, the path was clearer, not because it was better, but because it was simpler. Society provided archetypes, pre-packaged identities that a boy could step into. Think of your great-grandfather. His role was likely chiseled from the granite of necessity. He was the stoic provider. His worth was measured in calloused hands, a full table, and a roof that didn't leak. His emotional inner world was a private, unexplored territory. He did not have the luxury of asking, "Who am I?" because the answer was brutally simple. I am what I do. I am what I provide. This was his path to manhood. It was a life of performance, yes, but the script was clear, the stage was set, and the role offered a sense of honor. Or consider the archetype of the unquestioning soldier, a man whose identity was forged in discipline, brotherhood, and sacrifice for a cause larger than himself. He learned to subordinate his individual will to the collective, to face mortality, to understand duty. His path was one of trial by fire, a brutal but effective rite of passage that burned away the boy and left the man. These archetypes, and others like them, were the load-bearing walls of male identity. They were rigid, often suffocating, and excluded countless men who didn't fit their narrow molds. They demanded the suppression of vast parts of the human spirit. But they offered one thing the modern world has taken away: a map, a clear, if treacherous path from boyhood to manhood. Today, those walls have crumbled. The globalized economy erased the lifetime job and the security of the stoic provider. The complexities of modern warfare and a healthy questioning of authority have complicated the archetype of the unquestioning soldier. The social and sexual revolutions of the 20th century rightly challenged these rigid structures, exposing their limitations and the damage they caused. But in our haste to tear down the old prison, we forgot to design a new home. And now, men wander through the rubble, haunted by the ghosts of these fallen archetypes. They feel a phantom sense of duty without a clear mission to serve. They feel a primal urge to build and protect, but are unsure of what is worth building or who needs their protection. They are told the old ways are wrong, but are offered no viable replacement. And so they stand paralyzed, caught between a past they can no longer inhabit and a future they cannot yet imagine. This is the foundational wound. The map is gone, and into this vacuum, two new warring factions have emerged, each promising a way out, but each leading to a different kind of cage. The modern man finds himself fighting a war on two fronts, not in a physical battlefield, but in the psychological landscape of his own identity. And both fronts are waging war over the same territory, his own inner darkness, what Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow is everything within us that we have repressed, denied, and are ashamed of. It holds our aggression, our lust, our greed, our rage, our savage instincts. It is the primitive beast that lives in the basement of the civilized mind. A healthy man does not kill this beast. He confronts it, understands it, and integrates its power into his conscious life. He tames it and harnesses its energy. The crisis of modern masculinity is a story of a shadow that has been catastrophically misunderstood. On the first front, you have the critique of toxic masculinity. Born from a necessary and valid examination of the harm caused by the old, rigid archetypes, this critique points a finger directly at the male shadow. It correctly identifies the destructive outcomes of unchecked aggression, emotional suppression, and the will to dominate. It tells men, your shadow is the problem. It is toxic. It must be excised. But here lies the profound psychological error. The critique doesn't call for integration, it calls for amputation. It treats the shadow not as a source of vital, untamed energy, but as a cancerous tumor to be surgically removed. Young men are taught to be ashamed of their competitive instincts, to fear their own anger, to see their drive for power as inherently evil. They are taught to apologize for the very parts of themselves that, if tamed, could become the engine of their greatest achievements. The result is a man who is at war with himself. He becomes soft, not through integrated sensitivity, but through terrified suppression. He becomes agreeable, not from a place of strength, but from a fear of his own capacity for darkness. He has castrated his own psyche, and in doing so, he has lost his vitality, his edge, his fire. He has locked the beast in the basement and thrown away the key, but he can still hear it howling at night. On the second front, a furious reaction has erupted. From the dark corners of the internet, a new set of prophets have emerged, the alpha male gurus. They look upon the man shamed into weakness and offer him a simple, seductive alternative. They tell him that the shadow is not the enemy, it is the only thing that matters. They preach a gospel of dominance, of unbridled ambition, of ruthless self-interest. This is not the integration of the shadow. This is possession by the shadow. The alpha performer does not control his inner beast. The beast controls him. He mistakes arrogance for confidence, aggression for strength, and control for leadership. He builds an identity not on a solid foundation of self-knowledge, but on a brittle performance of what he imagines power looks like. He is just as afraid of his inner world as the man who suppresses everything. His bravado is a mask for his insecurity. His need to dominate others is a direct reflection of his inability to master himself. He hasn't tamed the beast in the basement. He has simply let it out to run the entire house. And so the modern man is trapped. One side tells him to kill his shadow, leaving him weak, resentful, and hollow. The other tells him to let his shadow consume him, turning him into a raging, one-dimensional caricature. Both paths are a betrayal of the true work of manhood. Both are a flight from the terrifying, necessary journey inward. Both are a spectacular failure of individuation. For millennia, cultures understood that a boy does not simply age into manhood. He must be initiated. Rites of passage were not empty rituals. They were carefully constructed psychological crucibles. They were designed to force a young man out of the comfort of boyhood, to confront his fears, to face his limitations, and to connect with something larger than his own ego. They were designed to make him confront his shadow in a controlled environment. He had to face the symbolic lion, descend into the symbolic underworld, and emerge on the other side, transformed. We have abolished these rituals. We have replaced them with a high school diploma and a driver's license. We send our boys into the world chronologically adult, but psychologically adolescent. We have given them unprecedented freedom, but no internal framework to handle it. This is the heart of the inner void. The journey of individuation has stalled before it has even begun. Individuation, in Jung's terms, is the process of integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of our mind to become a whole, indivisible person. For a man, two of the most critical steps in this journey are the confrontation with the shadow, which we have already seen, and the integration of the anima. The anima is the inner feminine archetype within a man's psyche. It is not about being effeminate. The anima is the source of his capacity for relationship, his creativity, his intuition, his emotional life. It is the bridge to his own soul. When a man is disconnected from his anima, he becomes a dry, rationalistic shell. He can build empires but feel no joy. He can conquer the world but cannot connect with his own children. He is a king in a barren land. And because he cannot find this feminine principle within himself, he desperately seeks it outside of himself. He projects his anima onto the women in his life. He doesn't fall in love with a real, complex woman. He falls in love with the fantasy of completion she represents. He makes her the carrier of his soul, the source of his emotional validation, the one person responsible for making him feel whole. This is a catastrophic burden to place on another human being. And when she, inevitably, fails to live up to this impossible divine projection, he is crushed. He feels betrayed. He becomes resentful, not understanding that the betrayal was his own. He betrayed the duty of carrying his own soul by outsourcing it to another. This is the modern tragedy. A man who has not confronted his shadow and has not integrated his anima is a ghost in his own life. He is unmoored, drifting. Externally, he might achieve success, money, status, followers, but internally, he feels the gnawing emptiness of the void. He doesn't know who he is because he has never undertaken the journey to find out. He has performed roles, he has worn masks, he has chased external validation, but he has never become himself. And so he wanders the maze, mistaking the echoes of other people's expectations for his own inner voice.
If the old maps are useless and the new battle lines lead only to self-destruction, then the answer is not to find a better map. The answer is to build a better compass. This compass is forged in the fires of individuation. This is not a list of 7 habits or a quick life hack. This is the great work of a man's life. It is composed of 4 cardinal directions. First, you must turn and face north, confront the shadow. This is the path of radical self-honesty. It begins with a simple, terrifying question. What is the part of myself I refuse to look at? Look at your anger, your envy, your laziness, your arrogance. Do not judge it. Do not run from it. Observe it. Where does it come from? What does it want? The shadow is not evil. It is primal energy that has been neglected. Your task is to listen to it, to understand its needs, and to bring its power under your conscious control. The rage that makes you want to punch a wall can be channeled into the discipline to build a business. The envy you feel for another man's success can be transformed into fuel for your own ambition. You must descend into the basement of your own psyche, not to slay the beast, but to learn its name and make it your ally. A man who is friends with his shadow is a man who cannot be easily manipulated because he is not afraid of what lies within him. Second, you must journey south, integrate the anima. This is the path of emotional courage. It means ceasing to see feeling as the opposite of thinking and emotion as the enemy of strength. To integrate the anima is to develop your inner world. Read poetry. Listen to music that moves you. Cease to be fears avoidant. It means developing empathy, not as a performance, but as a genuine capacity to understand the inner world of another. When a man integrates his anima, his relationships with women are revolutionized. He stops projecting his needs and fantasies onto them. He no longer needs a woman to be his muse, his mother, or his savior, because he has found those nurturing and creative principles within himself. He is finally able to see her for who she really is, a separate, whole individual on her own journey. And in that space of mutual recognition, true, profound connection, not need, not desperation, but partnership becomes possible. Third, you must look to the east, to the rising sun. Discover your personal myth. The old archetypes are dead, but the human need for a guiding story is eternal. The man on the path of individuation must become the author of his own myth. This is the search for a purpose so compelling that it organizes your entire life. This is not about finding a job. It is about finding a mission. What injustice in the world breaks your heart? What problem can you dedicate your life to solving? What legacy do you want to leave behind? This personal myth is what Viktor Frankl called man's search for meaning. It is the ultimate antidote to the inner void. A man with a mission, a why to live for, can bear almost any how. He is no longer performing for the approval of others because he is living in service to his own self-chosen purpose. His life is no longer a series of disconnected events. It is a story, and he is its hero. And finally, you must travel west into the sunset of the ego. Live the authentic self. This is the culmination of the journey. The authentic self is not a perfect self. It is a whole self. It is the man who has faced his shadow, integrated his anima, and is living his personal myth. He possesses a quiet confidence that does not need to announce itself. He can be powerful without being domineering. He can be sensitive without being weak. He can listen without surrendering his own principles. He has a quality of presence, of gravity. When he speaks, people listen, not because he is loud, but because his words are rooted in the deep soil of self-knowledge. He is no longer a character playing a part. He is simply, powerfully himself. The crisis of masculinity is real. The confusion is valid. But it is not a death sentence. It is an invitation. It is a call to adventure. Perhaps the greatest adventure a man can ever know, the journey inward. For generations the path was laid out for us. Now the wilderness is before us, and we each must cut our own trail. This work is not easy. Confronting your shadow will be the hardest thing you ever do. Integrating your anima will require a courage you didn't know you had. Discovering your myth will demand everything of you. There will be moments of doubt, of terror, of profound loneliness, but the alternative is infinitely worse. A life lived in the shallow end, a half-life of quiet desperation, playing a role you never chose in a play you don't understand. The world does not need more men playing the role of the unfeeling stoic or the arrogant alpha. It doesn't need you to be a caricature. It needs you, in all your complexity, your light and your darkness, to become whole. It needs you to become yourself. Stop looking for the world to give you a map. It doesn't have